What if everything we thought we knew about ancient civilization was wrong? Not slightly off, not missing a few details. Fundamentally, completely wrong. In the last few years alone, laser scanners have revealed cities the size of modern metropolises buried beneath jungle canopy. Scientists have decoded a Mayan calendar that was simultaneously tracking every visible planet in the solar system over a 45-year cycle without a single telescope. A king who died 1,700 years ago just got his name back. A desert the size of a continent was once a lush green paradise full of lakes and wildlife. And somewhere in Scotland, one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human history is buried under a field, deliberately. Stay until the end, because I promise that last one is worth it. These are the discoveries that are rewriting history right now. Let's get into it. We start in the jungles of Guatemala with a piece of technology that is genuinely changing what archaeology looks like. It's called LiDAR, light detection and ranging. The concept is almost simple. You attach a laser scanner to a plane, fly it over dense jungle, and fire billions of pulses of light at the ground. Those pulses pass through gaps in the canopy, hit whatever is underneath, and bounce back. What you get is an incredibly precise map of the ground surface. Every bump, every wall, every road, regardless of how thick the trees above it are. When scientists pointed this technology at the Mayan lowlands of Guatemala and Belize, they were not prepared for what they found. Hidden under centuries of jungle growth, connecting hundreds of Mayan settlements, was a network of massive elevated roads, chalk white, raised several feet off the ground, and stretching 110 miles across the landscape. Some of these roads were 130 feet wide. They were engineered structures built to move people, goods, and armies efficiently across a civilization that was far larger and far more connected than anyone had imagined. And that's the bigger revelation. One survey area alone uncovered over 60,000 previously unknown structures: temples, palaces, farmhouses, reservoirs. The Maya weren't a collection of isolated city-states dotted across an empty jungle. They were a dense, interconnected civilization, and the rainforest simply swallowed it whole. For 1,000 years, we walked on top of it and had no idea. LiDAR gave us the eyes to finally see it. But here's the thing about the Maya that I really want you to sit with. They weren't just great builders, they were extraordinary scientists. And nowhere is that clearer than in how they studied the sky. Using a document called the Dresden Codex, one of only 4 surviving Mayan books written on bark paper and filled with astronomical tables, researchers have established something that is genuinely staggering. The ancient Maya were predicting solar and lunar eclipses centuries in advance. Not roughly, not approximately, with real precision. And they did it without a single optical instrument. Just naked eye observation, rigorous mathematics, and knowledge passed down carefully through generations of sky watchers. But the bigger breakthrough came in 2023, when 2 researchers finally cracked a calendar mystery that had stumped scholars for over a century. It's called the 819-day count, a Mayan calendar cycle that seemed to match nothing. Not the solar year, not the lunar cycle, not any single planet's orbit. For decades, researchers assumed they were missing something. Turns out they were missing the scale. The 819-day count wasn't designed to track one planet. It was tracking all 5 visible planets simultaneously: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And their synodic periods fit perfectly into a repeating 819-day framework extended over a 45-year cycle. The Maya had built a single, elegant system that could predict where every visible planet in the night sky would be for decades into the future, without telescopes, without computers, with observation, mathematics, and time. They weren't just watching the sky, they were mapping the entire solar system with their bare eyes. Behind every civilization, behind every road, and every calendar, there are human beings. And sometimes those people come back to us in ways that are quietly devastating. In the ruined Mayan city of Xochitlam in Guatemala, archaeologists arrived at a site where looters had already been spotted. They got there first, by a narrow margin, and inside they found a royal tomb that had been sealed for 1,700 years, completely intact. Lying at the center of it was a jade mosaic mask of extraordinary craftsmanship, its hundreds of individual pieces still fitted together with breathtaking precision. Inscribed in the tomb were glyphs that told the researchers who this man was: a Mayan ruler named Itzam Kokaj Balam, a king Someone who once commanded armies, shaped a city, and ruled over thousands of people. And until the moment those archaeologists walked into that tomb, nobody alive, nobody anywhere on Earth had known his name. He had been lying in darkness for 17 centuries. And then suddenly, he had a name again. Now, we leave the Americas entirely. Travel east to the world's largest hot desert, the Sahara, and hold on to this fact. It was not always a desert. Between roughly 5,000 and 15,000 years ago, during a period geologists call the African humid period, or more evocatively, the Green Sahara, this entire region was transformed. There were lakes the size of small seas. There were rivers. There were vast grasslands full of wildlife. Elephants, hippos, crocodiles, giraffes, yes, and there were people, thriving pastoral cultures who built their lives around this abundance. In a remote area of Niger called Gobero, archaeologists discovered the remains of one of these forgotten civilizations, buried at what was once the edge of a massive lake. The site contained two overlapping graveyards from two different cultures, separated by thousands of years, and the burials were deeply human. A woman found cradling two young children, their arms interlocked, flower petals scattered around them, placed there 7,000 years ago by people who loved them. Then the climate shifted, the monsoons retreated, the lakes dried up one by one. The Sahara reclaimed its territory, swallowing the grasslands, the wildlife, and the people who had lived there. It buried everything so completely that we didn't know any of it existed until someone looked. The desert preserved what it consumed perfectly, patiently, for millennia. The Amazon rainforest has been described for centuries as one of the last great wildernesses, vast, ancient, and largely untouched by human civilization before European contact. That description is being taken apart piece by piece. LiDAR surveys over the Llanos de Mojos region of Bolivia have revealed the buried remains of the Casarabe culture. And what they built is genuinely difficult to comprehend. Massive urban centers connected by raised causeways stretching for miles in every direction. Elaborate canal systems for water management. Pyramids rising 70 feet above the jungle floor. Researchers estimate these cities may have supported populations of up to 1 million people, numbers comparable to the great medieval cities of Europe. And they were doing it in the middle of the Amazon, centuries before Europeans arrived. The word we used for the pre-Columbian Amazon was empty. That word no longer applies. In 1974, farmers digging a well in Shanxi province, China, broke through into something unexpected: a terracotta head, then an arm, then a body. They had stumbled into one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century, the terracotta army of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China. Over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers, each with a distinct face, buried to guard the emperor in the afterlife. But here's what most people don't know. We have never opened the emperor's actual tomb. Beneath a large artificial hill called Mount Li lies a burial mound that has been deliberately left unexcavated. Ancient texts describe the chamber inside as a miniature recreation of the emperor's empire, with bronze models of rivers flowing with actual liquid mercury, a ceiling embedded with pearls to represent the stars, and crossbow mechanisms still loaded and ready to fire at intruders. Most historians assumed this was mythology. Then scientists tested the soil around the mound and found mercury concentrations dramatically higher than natural levels, concentrated in exactly the locations the ancient texts described. Chinese authorities have made a deliberate decision to leave the tomb sealed, at least for now. The terracotta warriors, when first exposed to open air in 1974, lost their original vivid paint within minutes. The technology to excavate without causing irreversible damage simply doesn't exist yet. Whatever is inside that hill has been perfectly preserved for over 2,000 years, and it's waiting. In the village of Pien, Poland, archaeologists uncovered the skeletal remains of a young woman, approximately 17 or 18 years old, who died around 350 years ago. Her burial was unlike anything around it. There was an iron padlock fastened to her toe, and across her neck lay a heavy iron sickle, positioned deliberately so that if she somehow rose from the grave, the blade would catch her throat. This was what historians call an anti-vampire burial, a well-documented practice in 17th century Eastern Europe, used on individuals whose deaths had frightened the communities around them. Plague victims, people who died suddenly and mysteriously, anyone whose passing seemed strange or threatening. The living would take precautions. What makes her story linger is the detail of the silk cap found with her remains. Her family had money. She was not a social outcast, buried in a field somewhere. She was someone's daughter from a household of some standing. And whatever she died of was frightening enough that her own community sealed her into the ground with iron. Researchers believe her name was Zosha. In 1963, near the town of Villena in Spain, a local archaeologist uncovered a Bronze Age hoard of remarkable objects. Golden bowls, golden bracelets, intricately worked containers. But two of the objects were made of something different, not gold. Iron, a bracelet and a small hollow hemisphere, both clearly crafted with great skill, and both made of a metal that should have been impossible to work at that point in history. These objects were created hundreds of years before the Iron Age began. People in the Bronze Age didn't have the technology to smelt iron from ore. So where did this metal come from? Isotopic analysis eventually gave the answer. It came from a meteorite. Someone had found a rock that fell from space, recognized that it contained something unusual, and worked it with enough skill to produce objects of real craftsmanship. They had no concept of what a meteorite was. They just knew the metal was different, special, worth preserving. And so they turned a piece of the cosmos into treasure. And finally, the one I promised you at the start. In 1887, on a hillside near Glasgow in Scotland, a farmer uncovered a massive, flat slab of rock, 43 feet long, 26 feet wide, roughly the size of a generous apartment, and covering its entire surface, carved by human hands approximately 5,000 years ago, were thousands of intricate symbols, spirals, concentric circles, cup and ring marks, repeated, layered, varied, across the whole slab in patterns that feel deliberate and meaningful in ways we can't quite grasp. It is one of the largest and most complex examples of Neolithic rock art ever discovered in Europe, and nobody knows what any of it means. These carvings predate written language in Britain by thousands of years. They might be maps of the surrounding landscape. They might be astronomical charts. They might be sacred ritual markings. Or they might be something we don't even have a category for. We simply do not know. In 1965, archaeologists made a decision. They buried it, deliberately covered the Kokno stone under several feet of earth to protect it from the vandalism that was slowly destroying the carvings. In 2016, they excavated it briefly, created a complete 3D digital scan of every single mark on its surface, and then buried it again. Right now, as you watch this, one of the greatest Neolithic mysteries in the world is lying under a field in Scotland, hidden on purpose, perfectly preserved, waiting for us to figure out what it's trying to say. Here is what I think ties all of this together. We have spent centuries telling ourselves a story about ancient people, that they were primitive, that they were limited, that the further back you go, the simpler everything gets. And what these discoveries keep doing, one after another, is proving that story wrong. The Maya mapped the solar system with nothing but their eyes and their patience. Civilizations thrived in the middle of the Sahara and the Amazon in ways we are only beginning to understand. A Bronze Age craftsman turned a meteorite into jewelry. Someone 5,000 years ago covered a rock in symbols we still can't decode. The ancient world was not simple. It was not empty. It was brilliant and complex, and most of it is still out there, buried under jungles, sealed in tombs, sitting under Scottish fields, waiting for the right technology, the right question, or the right pair of eyes. The question has never been whether there are more discoveries coming. There are, always. The question is whether we're paying close enough attention when they arrive. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these genuinely surprised you. I read every single one. If you want more videos like this, subscribe and hit the bell, and I will see you in the next one.